Alright, how's it going, everybody? Thomas here again with Read, Review, Recommend. And we have another book review for you today, or more of a book series review. We will be going over the Spiderwick Chronicles books 1 through 5, which is the Grace family story. It was such a good, heartwarming, joyful story. For your early readers, I honestly have to think that this has to be one of the top ones. This has to be up there for young readers. I'm reading it to my kids right now, my twins, and they are loving it. They're getting joyful. My son has questions about certain things, so it's piquing his curiosity, which is exactly what you want out of a book, especially for the youth. And they progress book after book after book. Every single one gets better than the last. I really do believe that. They learned from each book. I think they took the criticism, took the advice, and I think they improved every single time. So let's get into this. For the plot, the plot is a mom and dad just got separated, and her and her 3 kids, an older sister Mallory, and twins Jared and Simon, move out to the middle of nowhere in the middle of the woods. And Jared is having a very hard time dealing with it. I'm sure all the other kids are, but it's not emphasized. But Jared is. And whenever they get to this new house, it's beat up, it's raggedy, it was their old aunt's house, and they're just kind of exploring, not really liking it, and Jared comes upon this secret room, finds this secret book, and that is where the whole entire story begins. That's where the magic unfolds. That's where everything comes to life. And you go through tales of losing your brother and rescuing him, losing your sister, rescuing her. Your parents get kidnapped. You got to rescue them. You have to stop the big bad, Molgaroth. And you have to make friends and repair friendships along the way. And you really get a sense of who the Grace family is, or at least the 3 kids. You get a sense of who the 3 kids are, and some extra side characters that are really fun. But I will say the plot was super solid. It was really good. I even was talking to my wife, and I said, one of the only ways I could think that they would have made this better is if it would have been one book. If it would have been one book, it would have gone together so well. But a publishing company probably wouldn't have let them do that anyways. I mean, I'm not a publishing company, what do I know? But I'm sure they made significantly more money doing it this way, and it was still a fantastic read. But yeah, if they would have put it all together, it would have been such a good single-handed story. Bravo to them. So, for the plot, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. I thought the plot was super solid. For the opening, I'm going to count... I'm going to count the first book, the whole entire first book as the opening. I think that's what I'm going to do. So, the first book, the field guide... Let's see, what did we rate the field guide? Okay. So, it looks like we gave the field guide an 8 out of 10. So, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 right here. I did think the opening was a very solid book. It was very gripping. Like I said, you got to meet the family. You got to figure out about their situation, why they're moving out into the woods. You got to get a little bit of who they are personality-wise, kind of their dynamic, but it was still very loose. There wasn't a whole lot of ups and downs in the first book. It was more a lot of mystery and salvation. It was a very good first opening book, but like I said, each book gets better in the series. So I do think that this is the worst book out of the series, but it was not a bad book in any means. It was very good. It was a fantastic opening to the series. Moving on, we have pacing. The pacing of these stories for the age group that they are targeting is it is so good. The pacing goes from story beat to story beat, from mystery or problem to solution, mystery, problem, solution, all the way through, with trickling in just a little bit of side conversation, personality development, character development, character dynamic development. All of this stuff is just being, hit on here and there, while the overarching story is just, like I said, just going from beat to beat to beat to beat to beat to just make sure that you are constantly turning the page and just flowing through these chapters, which, again, is very good for the target audience and age that they were reaching for. The pacing to me for what these books were was a 10 out of 10. I really did. I thought the pacing was superb. It was absolutely phenomenal. The characters. Overall, now that the story is done, I will say the last two books did do a good job about diving in more to the characters. So I'm not going to give them a bad score, but the characters and one other thing to me were not the strong suits of these books. I think the plot, the pacing, and the writing were really the strong points of these books. But the characters were still good, and they really put a nice bow on it in the last two books of really letting you dive more into all three of the kids and some of the side characters. So I'm going to give the characters a low 8 out of 10. It wasn't as good as the opening. It's probably the lowest 8 out of 10 that we are going to have on here. But the characters were so good. And it is still an 8 out of 10. I really do believe that. It just was not the strong point of this book. Now, moving on to another thing that I thought was a strong point of this book. The writing. The writing. For how the age demographic of this was and how this is written and their choice of vocabulary to detail things without over detailing and losing the readers of that age. I think the first book started out very strong, and I think they only picked up from there. I honestly don't really have any harps on the writing. The only thing I'll say, it's not a Lord of the Rings. It's not a Red Rising. It is a kid's book, but it is written beautifully. It is very well thought out for the age group. It's heartwarming. It makes you laugh. It tugs on your emotions. It shows real life scenarios that kids might actually be going through and how they might actually be feeling, and that is very well developed over the books. The writing to me is definitely one of the strong suits. I'm going to give the writing a 9 out of 10 because, like I said, it is not a Lord of the Rings. It is not the most complex thing out there in the world. But for the target that they were reaching for, it was near perfect. So I'm going to give the writing a 9 out of 10. And I hope everybody that has a kid that wants to get them into fantasy reading, I hope they pick this series up and allow them to enjoy the world that was built. And sandwiched by 2 high points, we have Power System, which I'm just going to I'm just going to write it down. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Whoa, not 107 out of 10. Oh my goodness, I didn't skip down. I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. I had really hoped for more, and this is one of those cases to where they didn't show or tell. They kind of insinuated how much magic and power scaling could be done in this world, in this universe, in this power system. But what they showed us, what they told us directly on page, was very little. You do get to the big bad, and he's a shapeshifter. He's definitely more powerful than anything else we see up to there. Even though they hint that the elves are very, very powerful, but the elves are also afraid of this guy. The dwarves don't really have magic. They have futuristic engineering. So it was all very well done. What they do show and tell us. The problem is like I said, I feel like they insinuate that the power is so much greater that is out there and what is capable. They just don't actually give us any of that. So I have to give the power system a 7 out of 10. I thought it was the lowest part of the book series, but it did work very well with the book itself. So 7 out of 10 is where I'm going to leave it. But like I said, it is sandwiched between 2 high points. The writing was very well done, and the world building is also very well done. With the small area that they give you, like I said, little hints and characters and side characters and different kind of things that build and insinuate what this power system can be. I think the world building was so good. There's even a part in this where they go visit their Aunt Lucinda. She's in a hospital and she's refusing to eat when everybody's there. But once she realizes that the kids understand fairies and all the adults have left the room because the mom goes and talks to the nurse outside of the door, Aunt Lucinda calls on her little fairies, little pixies, and they bring her food because she can only eat fairy food. Once you have eaten fairy food, all human food, all regular food tastes horrible to you. So she can only eat this fairy food now. And it's little details like that and little hints like that. And when they go to where the dwarfs are and where the elves are and how they showed where the big bad built his base and just some of the creativeness that they put in there, I really did. I thought it was really good. This is another one that I'm going to have to give a 9 out of 10. I thought the world building was so cleverly done. And it's been such a joy for my kids reading through this book that I can tell how much they're enjoying the world building as well. So it's not a 9 out of 10. I mean, it's not a 10 out of 10, but it is a 9 out of 10 because the world building was fantastic. And the ending. What a sweet, nice wrap-up of an ending with a bow on top. Specially hand-delivered to you. This ending was fantastic. It was phenomenal. It was tear-jerking. It was intense with its ups and downs. The ending coming from, I would say, the latter half of book 4 and all of book 5, it really is just a roller coaster ride going straight down all the way to the finish line, and then just a nice smooth coast of a wrap up into the epilogue, into just the tear jerkiness, and what a beautiful ending. It is a happy ending, but it is not a happy ending all the way up until it is a happy ending. I will say that. It is very intense. It definitely has its moments of, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And I definitely think this was the perfect level of thrill and excitement for the age range that they were targeting. This was another one of the highest points for me in the book series. I thought the ending was also a 10 out of 10. Well done. Bravo. Golf clap to you. The ending was exactly what I expected coming out of book 4. With how strongly they ended book 4, I was just like, oh man, book 5. Book 5 is really going to be a roller coaster ride. It's really going to be fun. And it was. I just couldn't put it down. Every single one of these books, once I picked them up, I knew that I had to wait. Unless I was reading them with my kids, which they're still 2 books behind. But once I picked one of these up to read to me, to study, so that I could do these videos, every single book was one sitting. One sitting, I sat down, I finished it, I took notes on each chapter, and it was just a blast. Yeah, the ending was a 10 out of 10, and I guess I was already kind of getting into the all in all, but yeah, like I said, every book, once I picked it up, I knew I had to be sat down at my computer with my tabs open so that I could take my notes, because I knew I was going to have things that I wanted to remember. I knew I was going to laugh. I knew it was going to be such a joy that I had to be fully set up. I couldn't just read it on a whim of wherever I was, because I needed to be sat somewhere. I knew I was going to read it from page 1 to page end, and that is not something that I can say about every book I've ever read. And for it being a book that you can read to, like I said, I'm reading this to my 5-year-olds, and they are thoroughly enjoying it. I even think that you could read it to anybody that can comprehend a story of any age. I think I could have read these to my kids a little younger, and I think they still would have got most of the story beats. That's how simple some of the things are, but even for me as an adult, they were so captivating enough to where I enjoyed every book, every chapter, and all in all, I want to give this a 9 out of 10. I think this is one of the best series that you can read for younger generations out there. I really do. It's Holly Black, Tony D. Congratulations, guys. You hit a grand slam right here. You really, really, really learn from each book. The experience shows. If you are a teacher, this is one that you have to put up on your bookshelves for younger readers. If you are a parent wanting to get your kids in the reading, these are phenomenal books. Ones that I almost can't recommend higher than anything else, or anything higher than these, because they're just so good. I mean, I'm scrambling over my words here, just thinking about how much I enjoyed it, just having memories of reading these books and how much I did enjoy each story beat and how well they flowed together. So there we go. Spiderwick Chronicles books 1 through 5. The Grace family story. All in all, we're going to give a 9 out of 10. we are always going to recommend. If you are a teacher, put them on yourselves. If you're a parent, read them to your kids. Once again, I have been Thomas with Read, Review, Recommend, and thank you guys all for joining us. I hope that you guys all have a fantastic day.